what's going on here at the southern border. Now, if you haven't already heard, a few days ago, Trump signed a memorandum to sign over the Roosevelt Reservation to the Pentagon, to give it to their jurisdiction, basically used to conduct police operations and things like that. And so that's the whole reason why DHS has been in control of the border, because they're technically not the military. It's like, it's a federal police force basically. And so what you can expect to see is a lot of legal pushback against Trump for this. However, if he does declare a war, and which he's already gearing up for that, then this strip of land will be in his jurisdiction. And well, in the Pentagon's jurisdiction, there's nothing they can do about it. And it appears as though it's going to be that way. Why? Why do I say that? Because he's already declared the cartels to be a terrorist organization. He's got several naval destroyers off the coast of Mexico. We've seen signals intelligence flights flying up and down each coast of Mexico in the last few weeks. And it appears as though they're getting ready to go to war against the cartels. So, I want you to keep this in the back of your mind. I've said this on the channel before, and I'll say it again. Venezuela uses Iranian-made man-portable air defense systems, okay? So on a separate front, right, in our conflict or current struggle with Iran, if it ever goes kinetic, where we have a physical confrontation with Iran directly, there's a very real possibility that you could see Iranian-made man-portable air defense systems taking down helicopters along the border. Okay, it's a very real possibility. There has also been reports that Iranian man-portable air defense systems have penetrated our southern border during the Biden administration. Okay, so there's a very real chance that they're already inside the United States. They could be waiting for the right moment to strike, and if and when that happens, it's more likely to occur somewhere near an Air Force base during or near the, probably near a runway where jets are taking off and landing, right? So I'm saying all this just to get you guys prepared for the possibility that we could have helicopters and possibly Air Force jets shot down inside our country. It could happen inside the United States. Very real possibility, okay? And so, while we see all these naval destroyers in the Gulf of Mexico and they're pointing at Mexico right now, keep in mind, it could just be in a moment, in a blink of an eye, they could be 1 second turning and facing Mexico, and the next second they could be facing Venezuela and taking out Venezuela, right? Venezuela has a lot of energy resources, a lot of oil, okay? And there's a lot of people that want that oil, a lot of companies that want to operate those oil fields. Right now, it's Iran that's operating those oil rigs in Venezuela. They build them and they operate them. So, in a moment's notice, we could very well see a war, not just against the cartels in Mexico, but also against Iran inside of Venezuela. I want you guys to keep that in the back of your mind when these things, if these things potentially happen. So anyways, guys, that's my analysis on what's been going on. A few other things here in El Paso. They're building another detention facility from what I understand, it's on the east side of the mountain, right next to Route 54 and 375. I'm going to be looking for it. I know it's there. Deployed services will be operating this new detention facility. I think it's like roughly 50 acres or something. The article that I read said that they're clearing the land now. There's bulldozers out there, they're leveling it and everything, getting ready for the tents to start setting up the tents for a new 5,000 people detention facility. So I'm going to be looking for that detention facility. I'll try to get you some exclusive footage if I come across it. So stay tuned for that. Guys, if you appreciate what I do,
Within hours of taking the oath of office, I declared a national emergency on our southern border, and I deployed the U.S. military and border patrol to repel the invasion of our country.
And now President Trump has taken another step in his border and immigration agenda, issuing a memorandum giving the U.S. military jurisdiction over federal lands on the southern border. Here is what we know now.
So it says that the Department of Interior, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Agriculture should all work with the Department of Defense to facilitate the transfer of jurisdiction over federal lands along the border to the military. So this is another step in Trump's effort to really crack down on the border.
Could this lead to harsher penalties for people crossing the border?
It's not completely clear at this point, but potentially, yes, if you're trespassing on a military installation, that could involve harsher penalties. Really, though, it seems like this is sort of just allowing the military to operate more efficiently and effectively along the border. Under Trump, border crossings have dropped significantly, and the militarization of the border is a big part of that. So potentially this could seal up the border even tighter here.
Hey, Shalom, Yasharallah. Peace be unto the nation of Israel, whom I'm the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, respected by Israelites being the Israelite foreigners, scattered across the four corners of the earth, including within America, Babylon the Great, the main place for our captivity, and we are the Most High Yahweh's chosen people of the nation of Israel. So without further ado, as always, in Allah Shwan Kodash, meaning the holy tongue, as in the Paleo-Hebrew, being the ancient Hebrew, I'm going to give all praises, glory, and honor to my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom is the God of the living, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Baruch, Kodash, which is all praise to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, and the Holy Spirit, whom is our strength and our Redeemer and our light and our salvation. In the same tongue, Shana Kabuadium, Laha Sequani. All right, so once again, Mashana Kabuadium, Laha Sequanium, Shal Garwaraka, many double honors to the apostles and elder bishops, Great Millstone, and Shalom. Honors and salutations to Bayashadawada, meaning the house of David of the governing body of the 1/3 elect remnant of Israel, right, along with the rest of the 1/3 elect men, women, and children of Israel. All right, it's your fellow servant Malak Rayab, back at it again with another lesson through the spirit of prophecy, being a testimony of our Lord and Savior Hamashiach Yahushai, who the master of the world ignorantly refers to Jesus Christ. And this is a quick border crisis / migrant surge update, regarding that particular aspect of the satanic NWO agenda to further convert this corporation, this American corporation, into a prison planet, specifically in a national sense, by shutting down the borders and keeping people from going out, more so as opposed to keeping people from coming in. All right, so regarding the report, from the individual under the handle of Uncommon News 777, a local so-called truther down here in El Paso, that dedicates a lot of his time with surveillancing, the activity, circling around the border. Further brought out this report that I came across last night that influenced me to do a lesson on it, to filter this event, these events circulating around the border through biblical prophecy regarding the invasion of Jerusalem, of people before place, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. All right, which it makes up. It's not a coincidence that makes up that group of people, or demographic of people, makes up the majority of the people crossing the border, walking into a death trap. Okay, because as of recently, DJT, Nero Caesar, has recently is getting ready to pass the jurisdiction of federal land around circulating around the or involving the southern border states to from the Department of the Homeland Security and the Customs and Border Patrol Agency under the Department of Homeland Security to the military. All right, which further confirms that Esau is looking to further militarize the border, to further achieve his ultimate aspirations of converting this place into a prison planet and regulating everyone's lives. It's main, more so in America, Babylon the Great, through the microchip, the mark of the beast. All right. As it says in 2 Ezra 15 and 17, how you prophesied how in that precept that men would seek to. Matter of fact, I'm just going to get that real quick. 2 Ezra 15, start at verse 14. All right, 2 Ezra chapter 15 and verse 14. All right, and it reads, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein," woe meaning war, destruction. So it says in verse 15, "For the sword and the destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands." All right, because there's going to be a civil war, all right, over scarcity of resources. Okay, as a further result of this orchestrated economic collapse in America, including Trump's trade wars. All right, against foreign adversaries, in which we predominantly get our imported goods from, of these necessities. All right, through the commodities that people rely on. All right, along with the sedition amongst men. All right, regarding a civil pushback or insurrection against wicked, corrupt, vile governments such as America, Babylon the Great. So this is the following verse, 2 Ezra 15 and 16, and it says, "For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power." All right, so people are going to take matters into their own hands, regarding this insurrection against the government, this uprising against the government. All right, due to the corruption being overpassed, prophesied in 2 Ezra 6 and 27. All right, these carnal, naturally minded, faithless people, all right, who more so have spiritually invested in this beast system. Okay, are going to push back or resist, the satanic NWO, before it's all said and done. Okay, because they're going to realize that they received the wrong end of the stick, and entrusting the man, further cursing themselves, pursuing Jeremiah 17 and 5, more so than or as opposed to trusting the man of war, Abba Yahweh. All right, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, and that was never a luxury for the wicked anyway. All right. But anyway, it says, here's a point. 2 Ezra 15 and 17, it says, "A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able." And this is what this is all about. All right. Creating a prison planet, all right, to sustain ultimate control. As Alex Skull and Bones Jones told Aaron Russo in an interview years ago, when Aaron Russo revealed that Nick Rockefeller revealed, the intricate plans of the wicked elite, Zionist bankers, to Aaron Russo, an insider with his affiliation with Nick Rockefeller, where Russo was informed that the wicked elite bankers want everyone chipped. It is a part of ultimate control, and a part of ultimate control is border surveillance, and about ultimately shutting down a border. All right, just like the Romans, which are the Edomites, known as the Romans over 2,000 years ago, surveillance the border of Jerusalem, by stopping supplies from being imported to Jerusalem, further leading to a famine and cannibalism. That's going to happen again. As Yahushua prophesied in St. Matthew 24 and 20, how Jerusalem will be invaded with troops. Okay, history repeats itself, man. As it's prophesied in Ecclesiastes 1 and 9, how there's nothing new under the sun. So let's go back to this article here. I'm going to, bring out some information in this article, along with a few other articles, and bring out a few more precepts. All right. All right, give me 1 second, Bubba Shah. All right, so like you just got to the gas station, but second. All right, so it's back on this MSN article entitled DJT authorizes U.S. military to take control of land on southern border. It says he's authorizing the U.S. military to take jurisdiction over federal lands along the southern border to help enforce its immigration agenda. It says DJT issued a memorandum to the Secretaries of Defense, Interior, Agriculture, and Homeland Security late Friday titled Military Mission for sealing the southern border of the United States and repelling invasions. All right. So under, one of the acts, one of the 4 acts under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, all right, specifically focusing on the Alien Enemies Act of the Alien Sedition Act, okay, under the Alien Enemies Act, is how, this devil, is further, justified, referring to these so-called migrants, mainly of the demographic of so-called Negroes and indigenous people crossing the border, as foreign invaders committing espionage. So just to bring out a quick synopsis of this Alien Enemies Act. So this act empowered the president to imprison and deport aliens who were citizens of a country at war with the United States. You see, so under this moral decree / policy of Esau Edom, the devil the Bible speaks of, the modern day self-proclaimed white man, all right, the old ancient serpent called the dragon, okay, roughly paraphrasing Revelation 12:9, all right, that same serpent, the same spirit of that serpent crawling around in the garden, all right, dwelling within this devil, has further, use these immoral decrees to consider our people as domestic terrorists. Okay, under the guise of, domestic terrorism associated with gang affiliation, and all on behalf of this Trojan horse they're using to call the migrant surge / a border crisis, okay, to further demonize our people, as it says in Revelation 12:10, how, the accuser of our brethren will be cast down. That's Esau Edom accusing our brethren, all right, by demonizing our people, okay, by, associating negative stigmas on our people, degenerates, criminals, domestic terrorists. That's why even, a year before DJT announced, his first presidential run in 2015, he considered, the so-called Latino or Hispanic migrants crossing the border as terrorists and grapists and so forth. So now he's continuing his rhetoric within, the narratives of the wicked elite to justify, invading Jerusalem as they did before in 70 AD. All right. So that's why under the Alien Enemies Act of the 4 acts of under the Alien Sedition Act of 1798, okay, DJT is further justified revoking the citizenship of thousands upon thousands of so-called migrants, mainly of the demographic of so-called Negroes and indigenous, the respective kingdoms of the southern and the northern kingdoms of Israel. All done by design. All right. Let's go back to this article, bring out some more information. So it says, here's the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth that, Uncommon, had referenced. All right. Meeting that recently met with the military personnel when he came down here to El Paso. All right. Which I recognize that border fencing area all too well, which is around Loop 375. So I know exactly where he was at in this photo. So Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth meets with military personnel as he visits the border area in Sunland Park, New Mexico on February 3rd, 2025. So the consequences of Department of Defense taking control of federal land at the border aren't immediately clear. This guy, Adam Isaacson, which is Director of Defense Oversight for the Washington Office on Latin America, had recently mentioned, where he went on to say it could result in more severe criminal charges for migrants who cross the border unlawfully. All right, so this is the rhetoric that Esau is using, and because case in point, speaking of migrants crossing the border illegally, quote unquote, there's a case that is further exposing the hypocrisy of these goddamn devils. I'll go ahead and bring out this information here in this article. It's on Axios.com, entitled Timeline, the Case of a Maryland Man Mistakenly Deported to El Salvador. And there's this this El Salvadorian citizen, okay, most likely the tribe of Zebulon, by the name of Abrego Garcia. So it says the fate of a Maryland man erroneously deported to El Salvador remains in flux amid a legal battle between the government and the courts. The big picture, and a test of the powers of the executive and judicial branches. The DJT administration has so far refused to comply with the Supreme Court order requiring it to facilitate Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia's return from a high security prison for terrorists in El Salvador. The government accused Abrego Garcia, a Salvadorian national, legally living in Maryland. Okay, here's the key term here: legally living in Maryland. Okay, of being a member of MS-13, even though he has not been charged with any gang-related crimes. So it says he was detained by immigration officials and mistakenly deported, despite a court order that he remained in the U.S. due to a likelihood of harm in El Salvador. Justice Department attorneys previously conceded that he was removed to El Salvador because of an administrative error. All right, said Department of Justice said in a court filing that if Abrego Garcia manages to return to the U.S., he will be detained and removed from the country, which is obviously in the moral decree. So jump down to the point under the timeline of March 15th, where it says on March 15th, although the Immigrations and Customs Immigration was aware of his protection from removal to El Salvador, Abrego Garcia was removed to El Salvador because of an administrative error, Justice Department attorneys said in the filing. On the 12th of March, Abrego Garcia was stopped by immigration agents who wrongly told him that his status had changed. Court documents show he had withholding from removal status, which means he was allowed to stay in the U.S. because of the likelihood that he faced harm in El Salvador. Okay, so the whole reason why he fled from El Salvador, okay, was to flee gang affiliated crime and activities. Okay. Yet Esau ironically associated him or falsely associated him with such activities. Okay, all right, under the guise of domestic terrorism and gang affiliation. All right, that's why he's been cracking down on the Tren de Agua gang. Reportedly based out of Venezuela. All right. So it says, it says he was detained by immigration officials and mistakenly deported despite a court order that he remain in the U.S. due to a likelihood of harm in El Salvador. Okay, by way of, gang-related crimes. All right. So this, but yet, despite this devil's administrative error, all right, of mistakenly, quote unquote, shipping this Jake over to the Salvadorian detention facility, okay, known for slave labor, all right, and torture tactics. Esau is refusing to take accountability because he's the devil, and reverse that court order, okay, or that notion, that measure of having him shipped over to El Salvador and bring it back. And they're saying even if they reverse it, bring it back to the States, they'll deport him. You see, so this verdict, but yet, on this NBC article says El Salvador's president says he won't return mistakenly deported man to U.S. All right, and I brought this out, and I touched on this yesterday. Okay, but let's finish this off here. It says on this article on MSN, it says migrants who cross the border on land under the Defense Department's jurisdiction would have trespassed on military installation. Isaacson said they could be subjected to charges beyond entry without inspection, federal misdemeanor. So in other words, the offenses, all right, or the violations of crossing the border will be more severe, for the migrants of our people crossing the border, within a military installation, as opposed to being under the jurisdiction of the Department of Homeland Security. So this is go back to Psalm 64. In 1 it says, "Hear my voice, O power, Yahweh by Shemeshai, my prayer. Preserve my life from fear of the enemy. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity, who whet their tongue like a sword and bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words." All right, and the word there for whet, or whet, means to sharpen. All right, You look up the interlinear of that word in the Hebrew. It's ashar, the Hebrew word ashar, meaning to whet or to sharpen. All right. Salakia. It's the Hebrew word shanan, salakia. The Hebrew word for whet is shanan, which means to sharpen. And Esau sharpening, the bitter words through his forked tongue, okay, aimed at our people to further persecute our people unjustifiably. All right, to further implicate our people on charges unjustifiably. All right, through his immoral decrees. So this is Psalm 64:4 says that they may shoot in secret at the perfect. All right, the nation of Israel, specifically the elect. So you have certain individuals crossing the border that are the elect of Israel. And those who are not are walking into a war zone, a death trap. It says, Psalm 64:4, that they may shoot in secret at the perfect. Suddenly do they shoot at him and fear not. All right, because the elect of the nation of Israel are considered perfect because their hearts and minds are perfect in serving the Lord Yahweh Shem and Shai. Okay, by rehearsing the righteous laws, statutes, commandments by way of their measure of faith. Okay, considering them blameless and spotless from the world. All right, so this is Psalm 64:5. It says, they encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune of laying snares privily. They say, who shall see them? Okay. All right, so this is the mind frame of the devil, right? To secretly conspire, destroying our people through these traps. Okay, justified legally through their moral decrees, or even though, even through the irony of using these moral decrees to justify the wickedness, further showcases their hypocrisy and then bending their own rules. Okay, because case in point, shipping that that El Salvadorian, that Zebulonite, Jake, most likely from the tribe of Zebulon, so-called Mayan, to El Salvador. That El Salvadorian prison facility is a constitutional violation. And that's why the Department of Justice, had issued a request to, for DJT to reverse that measure of having him shipped over there on March 15th. But they're saying that they don't have the power to do that when, Esau's telling a blatant lie, because they do have the power to bring him back from that El Salvadorian prison. Okay, in terms of that Jake Abrego Garcia. So this is Psalm 64:6. It says, they search out iniquities, they accomplish a diligent search, both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep. All right, meaning what? The mind is deep. Okay, but the Most High God Yahweh by Shem Shai shall shoot at them with an arrow. Suddenly shall they be wounded. Okay, so ultimately those arrows are going to be those nukes. Okay, that'll destroy the main place for captivity, America, Babylon the Great. All right, the place of drawing waters, symbolic of egregious and grueling servitude. Okay, even in corporate, without the physical chains and chattel slavery. Okay, the slavery is still grueling and egregious, man, and vexing. Okay, on the mind, on the spirit. That's why it's very irksome to be in America, Babylon the Great, this wicked, corrupt corporation of tyranny, deception, hypocrisy, all right, and greed and covetousness, all right, through the consumerism, okay, of the commerce, right? Which is why Esau is waging trade wars geoeconomically against China, which is all being done to orchestrate the collapse of America, Babylon the Great. All right, to transition this current monetary system over to this new totalitarian, dystopian future of this technocracy. Okay, through this mark of the beast infrastructure, through AI. All right, this is what this is all about, creating this prison planet. So this is Isaiah 32:5 in the NIV, and it says, "In that day, ungodly fools will not be heroes. Scoundrels will not be respected." All right, a scoundrel is a low-down degenerate, a vile person, a habitual liar, a habitual and blatant liar. Okay, a backstabber. And these are the characteristics of a serpent-like person. That is a snakish person. Esau Edom, the subclaim white man. In which characteristics he further applied okay, during the Spanish Inquisition, all right, acquiring this land unjustifiably, all right, by force from the true founding fathers, the so-called indigenous of the Northern Kingdom of Israel, and he's utilizing or applying these same characteristics, okay, in this modern day time, in this modern day era that we're living in, okay, through the trade wars, okay, through the moral decrees, through the Trojan horse, known as the whole migrant surge, border crisis situation, to further showcase he is a niggard, man. He's a covetous, envious bastard who needs to be destroyed and will be destroyed, so that this earth can finally experience peace, which peace can only come through righteousness. And this is why the true rightful rulers of the kings of Israel, the royal priesthood, the king's priests, rightful righteous rulers and prophets, okay, will be reestablished in the earth under the second holy covenant by Yahweh, by Shem Shai, where we will be perfected in the law by having the law, statutes, commandments of the first holy covenant embedded inside of us. Okay, truly ruling this earth, okay, in righteousness. Okay, hence, peace being following through that righteous rulership. This is why the devil is being exposed. Esau, Edom, and suffering like white man these last days, within in his final hour. All right, this is Isaiah 32:5 from the top in the NIV. In that day, ungodly fools will not be heroes; scoundrels will not be respected. Verse 6 in the NIV says, Salakia, in the NLT, Salakia, Isaiah 32:5, in the Salakia, Isaiah 32:5 in the NLT, not the NIV. Okay, Salakia. So Isaiah 32:5 in NLT, or the New Living Translation. In that day, ungodly fools will not be heroes; scoundrels will not be respected, because they're being revealed. The devil. Isaiah 32:6 in the NLT. For fools speak foolishness and make evil plans. They practice ungodliness and spread false teachings about the Lord. They deprive the hungry of food and give no water to the thirsty, which is what they're doing to our people crossing the border. Okay, the demographic of the so-called Negro, Latino, Native American Indian populace crossing the border, entering a land that was stolen from them in the first damn place. Okay, in the 19th century. Okay, by Woodrow Wilson, setting up them borders to keep the French from invading, and then justifying setting the borders up, okay, by implying that they were trying to fend off alien invasions of our people, even though under another immoral decree known as the Guadalupe Hidalgo Treaty, Esau acquired the lands of Mexico, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Nevada, Colorado, okay, which was ultimately all a part of Mexico at one point. But they acquired those lands from the indigenous of the Northern Kingdom of Israel, the true founding fathers. Then they had the audacity to claim them to be aliens, meaning foreigners, when they're the goddamn foreigners, man. All right, that lesson I did some time ago, okay, pretty much, entitled, Esau, Edom is a real migrant and immigrant. Because you devils came over here, you didn't give the so-called indigenous, i.e. Sitting Bull, Squanto, Geronimo, and so forth, your papers, your legal documentation to justify you invading a land that didn't belong to you. But yet, our people taught you how to farm, how to fish, how to cultivate crops, how to hunt. What did you do? How did you pay them back? Do genocide, man. Isaiah 32:6 NLT. For fools speak foolishness and make evil plans. They practice ungodliness and spread false teachings about the Lord. They deprive the hungry of food and give them water to the thirsty. And they're doing that to a multitude of nations, man. Including them Ishmaelites over there in the Gaza Strip. Now, the Lord don't give a damn about them. Okay? Because what they're going through over there is justifiable for what they did against us through the trans-Saharan slave trade. Okay? But you're doing that to them as well in other nations. Okay? Where Amalek has halted, food and water Okay, precious necessities, into that land. All right, specifically, to that group of people I just mentioned. So the Bible, the prophecies of the scriptures, man, the Bible, meaning collection of books of the Latin term biblia, okay, was written aforetime for our learning. That way, through patience and comfort of scriptures, we may have hope. And part of that hope is understanding our enemy, understanding who our true enemy is, our arch nemesis, Esau, Edom is. As it says in Sirach 12:10, never trust thine enemy, for as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Every time we clean off an iron weapon, that rust is always going to come back. Hence, Esau's wickedness in comparison. But our people, 2/3 of our people will never understand that. That's why they're going to continue to seek refuge in Esau, Edom, through the asylum laws and so forth, which are flawed, hypocritical laws, aka immoral decrees, that Esau is already using to justify persecuting our people and going out of his way to persecute our people, such as what Trump is doing right now. This is Isaiah 32:7 in the NLT. It says, the smooth tricks of scoundrels are evil. They plot crooked schemes. They lie to convict the poor, even when the cause of the poor is just. You can't make this up, man. Just like this Jake here. Let me go back to him. Okay, Ebrego Garcia. Okay. Being justified to enter the states by a court order. So go ahead and re-highlight it. Through a court order that would demand that he remains in the U.S. due to a likelihood of harm in El Salvador. So he is over here legally, but not according to DJT. You can't make this shit up, man. You can't make it up. And see, this is prophesied in the scriptures. For identifying who we are, the children of the righteous inheritance, who so happens also to be the children of the greatest magnitude of oppression and affliction the world has ever seen, prophesied in Daniel chapter 9, verses 11 to 12. The same people who were prophesied to go into slavery through being shipped on slave ships in Deuteronomy 28:68. There's no other demographic of people who endured that. Okay? Being packed into the goddamn slave ships, including great ship Jesus, aka Jesus of Lubeck, slave ship, like sardines, to point to where we were unsanitary because we were going a long duration of time without proper or adequate necessities, man, through food, water, okay, where we were defecating on ourselves. And that brought forth a lot of contamination through a lot of diseases, where Esau was throwing our people off of the ships, or Jake would look to commit suicide by jumping off of the ships because the oppression and affliction was so goddamn great, man. No other demographic of people, as in a nationality of people, has endured what that prophecy, prophesied about, Deuteronomy 28:68, except for the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, and Israelite, and Israelite foreigners of that same gene pool or bloodline. You see? So history is repeating it. This is why history is repeating itself, because secular history is filtered with biblical prophecy, man. So back in Isaiah 32, and 7, the smooth tricks of scoundrels are evil. They plot crooked schemes. They lie to convict the poor, even when the cause of the poor is just. And this is part of Esau hunting our steps. It says in Lamentations 4:18. Okay, lurking. Okay, lurking like a lion, pursuing the Psalm, the 10th chapter. St. Matthew 24:20 says, St. Luke 21:20 says, and when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Now this actually already happened within the Roman siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD, where this devil desecrated our second temple and caused us to mainly the southern kingdom of Israel, so-called Negro tribes, to flee into northwest Africa. Okay, within the mountains, Yahushua commanded us to flee to, which are the Atlas Mountains, all right, around the Saharan Desert. Coincidentally, around the area where the trans-Saharan slave trade took place. That only pertains to which history only pertains to the so-called Negroes further identifying that we are of the lost 12 tribes of Israel. The people of Jerusalem compassed about with Roman armies, which is happening again, all over again. Okay? So this is, and this time is going to be worse. It's going to be, this is why brother's been, attributing Jacob's trouble as 70 AD 2.0. Okay? This is 2nd Ezra 16 and 70. And it says, for there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord Yahweh by Shem Yahshai. They shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord Yahweh by Shem Yahshai. All right. There's more so referring to the elect, but even Jake, even 2/3 of Jake have a zeal for the Most High, but they don't. It's just without it's just with a lack of knowledge, pursuing Romans the 10th chapter. All right. So so even further confirming Esau is going to come for all of us, man. So this is 2nd Ezra 16 and 72. For they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses. All right, to Esau's National Guard, okay, and so forth. The United Nations troops, the blue helmets, because that's why they have sleeper cell agents from these other nations already over here, from Turkey, from China, and so forth, waiting to be given their orders to snatch our people up. This is why the military is going to replace the law enforcement on the streets, and Trump looking to pass the jurisdiction from the Department of Homeland Security to the military is a further omen or precursor of that, man. Of Jerusalem being compassed about with armies, Roman armies specifically, of the Edomites all over again. 2nd Ezra 16 and 74 says, then shall they be known who are my chosen, and they shall be tried as gold in the fire. All right, because the elect of Yasharallah is likened it to precious gold of Yahweh by Shem Yahshai. Okay, the apple of his eye. They're gonna stand the test of time by triumphing through this final test, Jacob's trouble. Okay, this proverbial fire, symbolic of trials and tribulations. By not bowing down before this beast system and taking the mark of the beast, that chip. This is 2nd Ezra 16 and 74. Hear, O ye my beloved, said the Lord Yahweh by Shem Yahshai. Behold, the days of trouble are at hand, but I will deliver you from the same, only the elect. Be ye not afraid, neither doubt, for the Most High God, Yahweh by Shem Yahshai, is your God. He's only the God of the elect. All right. So that's pretty much the point. And the water for you, Akim, and for you, Aqua, tuning in. All right. Yahweh by Shem Yahshai, Barakathum. So I'm going to end it off on that note. Pray this lesson was further edifying his ordinance elect, and give all praises, glory, infinite honor to my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom is the God of the living, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Barach, Rash, for blessing me the spirit to do this lesson. And with that, Wa, Baba, Wa, Abba, Baba, meaning and destruction to Babylon the great land of confusion, America, the main place for captivity. All right, Wa, Shalom, Labachayim, Shabbayah, Shadabada, Shaya Sharala, meaning and peace to the elect of the house of David of the nation of Israel. All right, and on to the next one.